Welcome to the Power Platform Show. Before we chat with today's guest, here's a quick message from our sponsors. Do you need career coaching? I've been working with Microsoft business applications for over 18 years and have coached many people to fulfilling careers in the space. If that sounds like something that interests you, please go to nz365guy.com/coaching. And with that, let's get on with the show. Well, today's guest is from Houston, Texas. She works as a Power Apps developer and system analyst at Custom Air Product Services. You can find her on Twitter at Rebecca Sackett, which I'll make sure I put in the show notes. And she also has an amazing YouTube channel, which I also will put in the show notes for you to check out. Welcome to the show, Rebecca Sackett.
Thank you. And that's Sackett.
Sackett. There we go. Rebecca Sackett. Well, welcome. What's it like today in Houston?
It's hot. It's very, very hot.
Yeah, you're in midsummer, right? Because I'm in midwinter.
Yes, it's super hot. We keep popsicles in the freezer, so.
Wow, nice. Well, good to have you on the show. I always like to start with kind of getting to know you. So first of all, when you're not working, what do you do, for food, family, and fun?
So my husband and I have been married about 13 years, and when we married, he had teenage girls, and now they're grown, so I have 6 grandkids, so that's usually what I do on the weekend.
Wow.
Is play with the kids. So we've got 4 boys and 2 girls, and they're over a lot, so.
And, it's been a long time since I've been in Houston, but where's your favorite place to go out and eat?
There's a lot of really good places in Houston. It's probably from where I live a good 40, 45 minutes. So a lot of times if we're going to go into Houston, we get a room and just stay the night.
Nice.
And then, of course, we have a lot of areas like Galveston, places like that where, it's a good environment. It's kind of, beachy, stuff like that. So not nice as beach as you have, of course, but still a nice environment.
So, just before we got on air, we talked a bit about where you'd been, and you'd said you'd been to Australia and also Papua New Guinea, which I find very interesting because not many people I know have lived in Papua New Guinea.
Yes, that's right. My mom, she worked there in Port Moresby for a couple of years. So I actually went over there twice and probably Australia 3 times, I suppose. But she loves to travel. She has a hard time staying put. So she's lived a lot of different places. But I went over there and visited. I actually went to Australia and rented a car by myself and drove from one end of Queensland to the other. It took me about 5 days, but it was fun.
Yeah, that's ambitious.
Yeah, I love to travel alone because I get to do whatever I want to do and eat whatever I want to eat. So
I like it. So tell me about what you do now. Tell me a bit about the company you work for, and really, how did you to get into this area of technology?
So I had a previous experience using Access. So that was kind of the only experience I had with any of this type of work, I suppose, although it's very different. So when I came to work here, they really weren't sure what they wanted me to do. They just knew they needed a little help in Excel, and they had a few Access databases that they needed to do updates to, that kind of thing. So I actually planned to just work part-time. But then about a week and a half, 2 weeks in, built an app, and they're like, nope, we want you full time. So it was really just out of necessity. We already had Power Apps as part of our product license.
Okay.
And so we were already paying for it, and it just gave us a way to allow people to not have to be at the office as much. So we just started with like simple form submissions, and I spit a lot of those out real quick, and then it's just grown from there. So now we have probably a little over 50 in place.
Wow. So what does Custom Air Products and Services do? What is it as a business?
So we do commercial HVAC. So we fabricate them here, we manufacture them, and we have a full service department, and we install them. So
okay. So what made you switch? Why didn't you just stay with something you knew, like Excel or Access? Why did you choose Power Apps?
Well, originally it was just kind of necessity, but I also like the challenge. So it was kind of, I don't know if I can figure this out, but I really want to. And so I just kind of dove in. And I really just find Power Apps to be very simple. I think a lot of people who don't have coding experience are sometimes better at it than ones who do, because they tend to overcomplicate it. And I like to keep it simple and clean. And so it just kind of works for me. And now I enjoy it. I really don't have enough time I kind of need an assistant, but we've gotten where all of our approval processes go through apps now. We just have so much stuff. So,
and so are they typically happening directly on mobile or tablet or PC type devices?
All the above. So
all of them.
Yeah, we have some in the field, service techs that normally they would have filled out the paperwork and had to turn it in later, but they do it from their phone so that it's submitted immediately, and they can include photos if they need to. We have a checklist for our fabrication department that the units go through, and they do those from phones and tablets in the shop. And then we have a lot that we do from computers, and most of the managers do stuff from their iPads if they're out. And the sales team also. So, yeah, we're kind of all across the board. So I try to stick with screen sizes and button sizes that basically can work on anything, because I never know what device they're going to be on. So
what are you using as your data source? Where do you ultimately put all your data that is captured?
So for looking, we tie to our accounting. We use Great Plains here. I don't think a lot of people are familiar with it, but so I do like just the look side of that. So like to look and see where a job is, to look and see how much PTO you have, stuff like that. I try not to duplicate any information, but most of our data right now I'm storing on SharePoint. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I keep it at a small amount. So if you're opening a job, it stays on there until the job's open, and then it moves. So there's never more than 100 items on most of the lists. So
right.
It works out perfect for our scenario. So,
how did you pick up the first? What was your first experience with Power Apps? Like, how did you? Was it purely that you had licenses and you started using it? But how did you get started? That very first step.
So I'm definitely hands-on. So they were just kind of they said, "Hey, we have this. It's part of our license. We're already paying for it. Why don't you take a day or two, poke around and see if it's something you think we can use?" And so that's kind of what I did. So I did, just the templates and kind of played around in it, and kind of was like, I don't know about this. And then it kind of clicked pretty quick. Watched a few videos. Shane, I watched a lot of his videos when I started because he really explained stuff well. And just once I figured out a couple of little things, it just kind of went from there. And then, of course, I like the challenge. So I like to push the limits. So once I got going, I was basically crazy trying to do whatever I could with it.
So what's the outer limits of what you've pushed so far?
Well, I know when I was first starting, there was a lot of times on the community, which I love the community. They have so much information out there, but there was just a lot of people that would say, "Oh, you can't do that. Oh, you can't do that." And I'm like, really? I would like to see. So I'm just I like trying to find new ways of doing things. And that's one thing I learned on there is I often will see people who don't do it the way I do it, but that doesn't mean that they're doing it wrong. So I think everybody has their own style, their own way, and multiple ways will work, which makes it even better for me. It kind of helps everybody find their own comfort place. So
how did you get into technology? Did you have like an accounting background? You mentioned Great Plains there. What was your background that moved you into starting to develop apps?
So actually I started pretty young building HTML when I was probably, 10 or 11.
Wow, that is young.
Yeah, my mother basically shoved it down my throat and told me, this will be a thing one day. You have to know how to do it. Of course, I do use HTML, but she made me do the ones with building a web page, and nobody uses it hardly anymore. But so it just kind of got me started. I guess it framed where I could think through the parts of it. And then I did have I've actually been all over the place. I've had experience in a car business. I worked in banking. I owned a pipeline business for a while.
Wow.
So I've done a variety, but I definitely like the number side of stuff. I like putting in calculations, and I want it to make sense. So, and I think that is why Power Apps works good for me too, because it's very logical.
Yeah. Have you started using PowerFX and what you're doing and seeing the parallels between that and Excel?
I use Power Automate with everything, and I use Power Apps, but those are the main two. I pretty much almost all of my apps have probably at least 3 or 4 different flows with it, whether it be notification or whether it be auto archiving. We have one when the job closes, it creates a folder and puts all the documents in it and kind of puts a nice little bow on it. That kind of stuff.
And so archives it if you have to go back to it.
Right. Which is often a good selling point for some of the naysayers is, you don't have to do that anymore, though. I can make it automatic. So that's kind of one of the things that's helped win over a few people who, people just don't want their stuff to change. This is how I've always
Totally.
been. So
are you using, is in place, do you still have Access databases or Excel, and when I say Excel, not just a simple Excel sheet, but something that had a whole bunch of formulas in it that was being used to do, a line of business function. Have you moved now all that across to the Power Platform?
We still have a few that we do in Excel. Mostly I don't. Mostly I use it just to pull in data and make sure it matches what I'm pulling in Power Apps. We have actually somebody else here who's a little better at that, so I just don't, because she's better at it than I am. And then Access I do still use, but not for other people. I use it for running queries. So I actually tie to the SharePoint list and I run queries to make sure that I know which stuff should line up. If this is here, this should be here. So I have several different queries that I go through and make sure that, the app's running as I wanted it to.
Yeah. Are you using any of the other type of tools that make up the Power Platform, like Power BI or Power Virtual Agents, AI Builder, any of those type of things?
I did some with the AI Builder a little, mostly enough to, just kind of get a handle on what it does. We worked with putting it, actually, we've been trying to work on getting it in our product catalog where we can do pull up a 3D of the units that we're selling for them sales team to be able to show a customer, this is where it would fit, this is how it would look there. And we do use Power BI here. We use it for several different things, but again, I don't do most of the stuff with the Power BI. So we have a team of 3, and we kind of try to pass off, mostly because the information changes so much, and it's a lot easier to say, I'll take this. So even if you have, I do all the Power Apps and I do all the Power Automate, but even with just those two, you're constantly reading to figure out what's next, what's new.
Yeah.
So
tell me about your process. How do people, in your organization go, hey, I have an idea that needs an app built. How does that get on your radar? And then what's your process involved in ultimately, meeting with those business folks that maybe want that, and then ultimately producing something that you go back to them with, and then ultimately into production?
So I'm pretty hands-on. I like to sit with whoever. I like to get the information from the manager, but I really like to sit with the person who's going to be using it, even if it's somebody in the shop or whatever it may be, and say, what is your process now? And then I ask lots of annoying questions that probably drive them crazy. Why did you do that? Why do you do that? Who's this go to? And try to just gather all the information I can. Is this question something that's always going to be a yes or no? Is there only certain choices it can be, just to try to keep the data as clean as I can? And then we just kind of go from there. And of course, you have to get with the manager to make sure what the end result is. But I typically like to deal with the person who's going to use the app as much as I can, because most of the time they're going to have the best input.
Yeah. And what's the response been from the business and the individuals on the tools that you built? I know there's always a transition period where people have to get used to something that's new. But then I often find when you go back 3 months later, they're like, oh man, I could never have done it the old way, now that we have this way.
It was definitely a hard sell here at first. The first couple that we did were just simple forms. It really wasn't that big of a deal. But when we actually started taking processes that people were used to printing papers and putting them in the folders and tried to turn it to digital, I would say that probably COVID was what the turning point was.
Wow.
Out of necessity. A lot of people had to say, okay, we'll do this. And then now some are like, this is great. It saves tons of time and we love it and we'll never go back. So, now it's kind of the opposite. Everybody thinks of stuff all the time. And I'm like, it's really not that hard. We don't need an app for that. So it's kind of, now everybody's kind of on board. And it's great because not only have I grown, but I don't have to ask a lot of questions I used to have to ask. I don't have to be as specific because the people here, everybody uses Power Apps at least to a certain extent. So now people come to me and say, I always type this, 3 different choices in. Can't you change that where I can just select from one of those 3 instead of having to type it in? And I'm like, yes, that's a great idea. Let's do that. But so it's nice to see the users evolve also and realize what capabilities are there to give valuable input.
Yeah. Are you finding other people showing an interest in actually getting involved in and developing them as well?
No, not really.
No? They're quite happy to let you do it?
Yeah, so far. There's been a few who they didn't really have a process yet. And so I suggested that they would be best to kind of try to do a little bit in Power Apps themselves to at least try to get an idea what they wanted to do, because they just knew that they had a problem, but they weren't really sure what they wanted it to do. And it's a lot easier for me to build an app if you already have the process, and then I can put the process in the app. But for me to build an app to create a process, I've done that before, and it's really hard, and it takes a couple of tries to get it right. So that kind of stuff, I will sometimes say, like, even if they don't do it Power Apps, do it in Excel, build it and show me what you want to do, and kind of think through the process first, and then give it to me.
Have you had any failures, or feel that you've reached the limits of what you can do with Power Apps and another way needed to be chosen?
Right now, my main problem is that I think we have too many, and it's made it confusing. So I've been actually going the other direction and trying to combine. So this is similar data, and all the same people used it. Let's put this in one app. So now I'm kind of going back and trying to take several and combine the information a little better, because we're just mainly I'm trying to get everything organized a little better, because it's just like we went crazy building so many, and now it's like, they even asked me, like, what's going on with this? And I'm like, I don't know which app that is. You're going to have to send me a screenshot, because I don't remember. So yeah, I was just trying to bring it down a little. Not less information, just less places to go for it.
Yeah, makes sense. What's your kind of hero app, the one that you're most proud of that you've built thus far?
Probably the closed job one, because it was the biggest game changer in a lot of ways. So we have a few that's approval, but they're all the same. So they used to print bukus and bukus of documents. I mean, it was like an all-day affair, and make up all these folders. And they sat in the corner of the office where several rounds of people would have to come by. So the salesman would have to come by for his stack of folders, and he would go through it all, sign it. And then you would have a manager come by, and then it was a separate stack, because and then one more round. And now it's an app. They just select the jobs and all the documents are pulled and created automatically. And it takes 5-10 minutes. It used to be a 2-week process. So now basically when they start the process to close jobs, it takes about 2 or 3 days, and it used to be 2 weeks, and no papers printed. So.
Wow, that's amazing. And so you capture all the signatures, the sign-offs, that type of those steps.
Correct. I did try to avoid the digital signatures. We use them some, but with Power Apps, I don't see the value in it, because you're logged in with your password, all your information. So I know it makes people feel better, but as for like real value, I don't really think there is. But that one has been a big deal, because it affected so many people and saved so much time.
Yeah. I like that you've made that switch, that the fact that you're logged in is electronically signing it, because you've got your unique username and password. You don't need to see a scribble on screen, so to speak. Yeah. A lot of people still don't get that. Most people still don't get it.
Yeah, I had to show one of the bosses one time. We were talking about it, and I'm like, do you know whose signature that is? And he's like, no. And I was like, neither do I. It's not valuable. So now they basically have two choices. They either can send it forward or send it backwards. And it just kind of runs its little process and tracks dates and times and names of everything it does and puts it on a document at the end. So
really good. Tell us about YouTube. You've grown a following there. You're on YouTube. How did that start for you? And what's your experience been?
So the first couple of videos I did was because I was on the community and someone asked a question that I could not seem to explain without showing it. So I did a video to show how to do it. And so then I've kind of did a few from there. It's actually something I really want to work on this year and try to improve on and start doing more. I enjoy doing them. I like explaining it. Sometimes I find new things whenever I'm trying to explain it that I didn't think through or realize before. I find that I learn doing them also. And I occasionally have to go back and watch one to remember how to do something that I haven't done in a while. So I really would like to pick up on that a little more. I enjoy it. I just have been swamped lately.
Yeah, I see you did a video on Power Apps calendar view from a SharePoint list, and it's had coming up 30,000 views. That's that's a phenomenal number, of people watching that content.
Right. Right. Yeah. When I first did that, it actually was, there wasn't a lot of information on it at the time, or not that I could find. And we needed it. We had an actual use case for it. So it was just something I needed. And so that's why I did it. It really was for selfish reasons, but it made me explore and find a lot of information that I wouldn't normally have dug into. So it was a lot of fun.
So good. And to wrap up, what's your advice to other companies that, may have a lot of paper-based processes? You've used it specifically in the HVAC space, but I'd say there must be many businesses like this that are still very paper-intensive, very, you're saying 2 weeks to do a closeout process. What's your advice to them and getting up to speed in, Power Apps?
Well, I think a lot of people just try to overthink it, like looking at the industry, like you said, but it's really, everybody has an approval process. Yours is a little different, but we all have it. So it's really, at first getting started, it's taking something that you're already doing and just making it digital and kind of thinking through the process. But the other thing was here, I think I grew in Power Apps well because they didn't try to really restrict me. They kind of gave me a little time to figure out my way on it and let me go. So I think there may be people already in organizations who are perfectly capable of learning how to use Power Apps without necessarily having to bring in anybody new. I mean, you just need someone who's going to take the time and can think through the process.
Yeah, so true, so true. Awesome. Okay, let's, I always like to wrap these up with some random questions.
Okay.
Here's yours. If you could meet any historical figure, who would you choose and why?
Oh, wow. I would say, what's her name? Sandra Day O'Connor, was it? Yeah, I did a lot of research on her when I was a kid, and she was just a very interesting character. She was in the Supreme Court here. One of the first women. So it's just, it was such a different time back then. So I'd just be interested in the outlook going through that.
Totally. Would you rather be at the start of planet Earth being, coming into being, or at the end? Would you like to watch the final finale or be there at the start?
Oh, definitely the start.
What's the last product you've ever returned?
Gosh, I don't know. I'd never return anything. I think it's not worth the time.
It's so true, right? You get something, you're really like, what a hassle. Yeah, definitely. Even on Amazon, I've not returned stuff that I should have, but it's just because it's weird. What a hassle.
I actually don't shop online.
Wow. No way.
No, I like to go shop in person. I very rarely shop online.
Wow. Fair cool. Well, thank you, Rebecca, for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Application MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 guy. If there's a guest you'd like to see on the show, please message me via LinkedIn and let me know. Please like and subscribe in your favorite podcast player. If you want to leave a review, you can do that at podcast.nz365guy. Otherwise, stay safe out there and see you next time.